Migrating Azure SQL Managed Identity is a crucial process that enables you to move your database to a new environment while maintaining seamless authentication and authorization. This tutorial will guide you through the step-by-step process of migrating Azure SQL Managed Identity. Firstly, it is essential to understand what Azure SQL Managed Identity is. Azure SQL Managed Identity is a feature that allows your Azure SQL database to authenticate to Azure services without needing to store credentials in your code. This feature is based on Azure Active Directory and provides a secure way to manage access to your database. To migrate Azure SQL Managed Identity, start by creating a new managed identity for your target environment. You can do this by going to the Azure portal, navigating to the Azure Active Directory section, and creating a new registered application. This application will serve as the managed identity for your Azure SQL database. Next, you need to configure the managed identity for your Azure SQL database. You can do this by going to the Azure portal, navigating to your Azure SQL database, and clicking on the Managed Identity tab. Here, you can select the managed identity you created in the previous step and configure the necessary permissions. After configuring the managed identity, you need to update your database connection strings to use the new managed identity. You can do this by going to the Azure portal, navigating to your Azure SQL database, and clicking on the Connection Strings tab. Here, you can update the connection strings to use the new managed identity. It is also essential to update your application code to use the new managed identity. You can do this by updating your code to use the new connection strings and managed identity credentials. You should also ensure that your application is configured to use Azure Active Directory. Authentication. Best practices for migrating Azure SQL Managed Identity include testing your application thoroughly after migration, monitoring your database for any issues, and ensuring that your managed identity has the necessary permissions to access your database. In conclusion, migrating Azure SQL Managed Identity is a straightforward process that requires careful planning and execution. By following the steps outlined in this tutorial, you can successfully migrate your Azure SQL Managed Identity and ensure seamless authentication and authorization for your database. Remember to test your application thoroughly, monitor your database, and ensure that your managed identity has the necessary permissions to access your database.